Hi and welcome to the Sakky's How to Put a Plushie Head Together tutorial. Today I'm going to be assembling a plushie head based on the pattern of a Sailor Moon Stars Sailor Saturn plushie, which is where I derived the pattern of the head from. So these are my pattern pieces over here. These are some things that you'll need. I'll link to the pattern in the comments. You'll need some thread, and I work with felt, but you can work with lots of other types of fabric. And this is some scissors and some fluff. And so I've actually gone ahead and cut out all of our shapes ahead of time so that we can get started. Now this particular plushie has black hair and a champagne colored face. And the felt that I use is CPE felt, which comes from Union, South Carolina. And it's newimagegroup.biz.com, I think, is the website where I get it from. But I also use Echo Felt, which is from, it's made from recycled bottles. Okay, so what you have here is the face pattern, which I've already gone ahead and did the iron-on transfer for the face on. And then you have two patterns for the side of the head, these two over here. And then you have two patterns for the back of the head, these two over here, and one for the chin. And the way I usually start is to do the back of the head. So these little triangles here tell you how to line up the shapes. And then you pin your seam. Now, I learned how to put this pattern together from the Baby London Star Moogle pattern tutorial. She had her tutorial in stills where she took pictures of each step, which was super helpful. But it also took me a couple of tries to kind of figure out what was going on in between the pictures. So I was hoping that a video would be exceptionally helpful for you guys. So I'm going to start sewing the seam, usually from the top of the head to the bottom of the head. And I'm going to tie a knot across the end here. And actually, the stitch that I use, I don't know what it's called because I don't know that much about sewing, but I stitch far out and then I go back about halfway into where I was. I picot. And then I go out about 1/4 of an inch or so, maybe less, and then I go back in halfway to where I was. Picot. You're interrupting my tutorial. So I'm actually just going to skip the video ahead here to the end of the seam, and then we'll go on to the next step. So now I'm wrapping up the last few seams of the back of the head. And I'm just going to tie this off with a knot. Probably 2 knots. Okay. Now this plushie has short hair, so the back of the head is just going to be one solid back. But if you have a plushie that has long hair, what you can do is sew from the point out in each direction, or sew in from the outside to the point. And if you leave a space in the middle, what you'll then do is cut it in half right across the point right here. And when you cut this in half, then you can take a hair pattern. This is a pattern that I used when I did the Ariel plushie, and it's also the hair pattern that I use for a lot of long-haired characters. So once you have it cut in half, you can spread it open and you'll be able to fit this shape into the seam that you had just cut. And then you can then just, sew the hair right into the seam. That way when you flip the head inside out, the hair will be sewn in and it'll hang down off the back of the head. So we don't have to do that for this plushie because it has short hair in the back. Okay, the next thing you want to sew shut are these two little triangles at the bottom. It just sort of helps keep the shape of the back of the head right. And you can actually mess around with those triangles and to give it a slightly different look if you want to. Make sure that you're sewing the triangles together. Like this is my seam. I don't want to sew it this way because then it would end up being backwards. I've done it before. Sewn the back of heads on backwards, so it helps to pay attention when you're sewing. It's easy to get distracted by kitties playing in bags or walking across your desk. You can't lay there, Pico. So I'm going to skip the video ahead until I'm done sewing both of these, and then we can go on to the next step. Okay, so now I'm wrapping up sewing the two little triangles. I'm just going to tie them off. Okay, so now we've got the back of the head, that's all set. We'll put that aside for now. And the next thing I want to do is attach the sides of the heads to the chin. I'm working with felt, so there's no right side, but you do, if you have fabric that has a right side, you need to pay attention to what you're sewing in which direction. But that's why I like felt, because I don't have to think about it. So the way that you sew the sides of the head on is in this shape like this. And I use the thread color of the hair, usually. Pico wants to help. You're not helping. Come on, go. Be going. Shoo. Beat it. If any of you guys have cats, I'm sure you understand my predicament. So. If you guys don't come to my live stream, this is a pretty good taste of what it's like. Anyway, sewing the sides of the head onto the chin. I use a really, really tiny seam when I do this. It's like probably 1/8 of an inch. And so there's one side. I'm going to do the other side, and I'm going to skip ahead in the video. So I'm finishing up attaching the sides of the head to the chin. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is start layering the stuff that's going to go on the face. So I've gone and cut out his hair. And what I usually do with hair when it gets kind of thin like this is I take it down in the basement, I flip it upside down, and I spray it with some clear acrylic. And that makes it a little bit tougher, a little bit stiffer so that the fibers don't pull apart. Because felt is a little floofy. So when you're going to be sewing bangs or something similar in hair, you actually put it, I put mine on the face while I'm sewing in the sides of the head and the chin. I used to just kind of glue it on top at the end, but this actually looks a lot nicer. So I've actually got some ears too that are ready to go. I don't really have a pattern for ears, I just kind of cut them out and sew them. So the way we want his hair to go is we want it to be in the seam for most of the top, but then we want the sides of his hair to stick out on either side of his face. So I'm going to actually pin the pattern down. So that we don't get this hair in the seam. And then we want his ears to go on the side of his head. I usually line the top of the ear up with the top of the eye. So once you've got all your hair pieces that are going to go in the head seam and your ears on, the next thing you need to do is attach the chin. So what you're going to want is the seam that you sewed out. So this is the inside seam facing out. And you line up the chin with the bottom of the face, which is what those little triangles are for. And then you pin it. And then you just keep pinning all the way around. Usually I'll do the chin first. Now this is a good time to check to see how your ears are lining up. As you can see, the chin and the hair meet right at the ear on this side, which is kind of where I want it to be. But on this side, we're not even close. So I want to move this ear down a little bit. There we go. Pinning over the ear is sometimes a little bit of a challenge. Depending on your fabric, it could get kind of... Now, especially when you're working with felt, try not to pull on the fabric too much because felt is, you know, sort of folly-aparty, and if you pull on it too much, you'll stretch out the fibers and then you'll end up with a big hole in your head. And that would be no good. You try to keep the outside seam as flat as possible. Now because of the shape of the pattern, the inside seam is going to bunch up. That's okay. You want that to happen. But you just want to try to keep the outside seam as flat as you can. And don't pin past the triangle at the top, because that's the top of your head where the two meet. I'm going to pin this other side, and I'll skip ahead in the video to the next step. So this is the last pin on the side of the head there. And now we have the face with the chin and the sides of the head pinned on. And there's usually a little bit extra here. And that's good because that's going to be a seam on the top of the head. So then once you've got this all pinned down, you have to start sewing this seam together. And you're using two different colors, so you're using the skin tone and then you're using the hair tone all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and get that sewn up, and then I will check in with you guys when it's done. So now I'm wrapping up the last few stitches on the head, on the chin. off. And so the next thing we have to do is take all the pins out and see how we did.